So our next speaker is Silvio Pupo-Casco, who is the founder and CEO of Logos Capital. He is focused on, he's a conscious capitalist. Someone has background. He's catalyzing systems change via impact investing and technology, with particular interest in fintech, insurtech, technology, supply chain, and energy. Welcome, Silvio. And some topics of conversation for today. We know that blockchain is a record of data, providing transparency. It's relevant to accountability for ESG matters, as we've already mentioned. How is the crypto space embracing this? What still needs to be done? And we'd love to hear more about you.
Thank you so much, Diana, Peter, everyone else for hosting today. It's great to be here with you all. I've been really enjoying the panel and taking copious notes on the conversation today and everything amazing that's been happening in regards to technology and everything that Wall Street Green Summit would be hosting, with a lot of things coming up in the open. The supply chain for the government being one of the talking points, being able to comment on the SEC reporting requirements. About 10 years ago when we started Logos Capital, we were really adamant about the fact that the future of finance still needed to be updated. We don't use Windows 95 computers, but we use accounting systems that have been around since the times of the Medici and Marco Polo. And we haven't really updated our accounting system ever since those days, and in the context of merchants. And as a merchant bank that have been working with a lot of businesses and enterprises over the last few years, the last decade, our philosophy and thesis that triple bottom line accounting would inevitably come, I think, is now closer to reality a bit 10 years later. But that being said, we are seeing these requirements and standards for reporting and accounting to be the case. And excitingly, we're a big believer that blockchain technology, decentralized ledger technology, blockchain can really enable a lot of the trust factors of things that many believe was esoteric to think about are now possible, right? So to that effect, and I know that one of the topics that we'd be covering today is just, okay, well, what's been happening in Web3 and how is this affecting things in ESG? A lot of the conversation today has been around carbon credits. So I'll start there and saying that, there are some people that believe that carbon credits maybe should not be traded, but they should be retired. So a lot of carbon credits, and we had heard people talking about the quality of the carbon credits being super integral to understand, okay, well, where is really this value that's being driven, and what's the quality of the carbon credits that we are buying and purchasing? And actually, the quality carbon credits are hard to find and hard to come by, which I think is going to continue to put a pressure because of the limited amount of supply. This is a supply constrained market on the amount of demand that there is for carbon offsets and carbon emissions. So since last year, since we spoke last year, I've been quite focused on setting up a couple of things that would help us with financing and cutting the supply chain issue here. Part of it is green bonds, right? So how do we use digital impact bonds in general to be able to self-report and underwrite the impact that is being created in the projects that we're looking at, and how can we use that from even creating a pay-for-performance type model? To that effect, we've launched a business called Cities that focuses on a climate auditing for cities and governments and corporations in a way that is almost automated, right? Artificial intelligence generated. You just roll out a network, an IoT network, mesh network, and then the appropriate sensors, whether it's air quality, heat, water quality, etc. And then you start to create an environmental audit that is AI driven. And I think that this will help. I'm based in Miami, which is where I'm today. I'm calling from Palm Beach, but I'm based down in Miami, Florida. And a lot of the reporting that we need to do is nested reporting, right? So everything that's happening now that we're back in the Paris Climate Accord as a country in the U.S., right? How do we streamline that reporting and that accounting as a government? And that really starts at a hyper-local level, so that we can nest up and roll up into cities into counties, counties into states, states into regions, the region into the country, and ultimately that should be our impact reporting. And we could, with decentralized ledger technology, with blockchain, almost do that in an automated fashion in a way that we also know is tamper-proof. I'm hearing the echo. Chris, yes, thanks for the note here on the echo. Not sure if there is an echo coming in on my side. In any case, that tamper-resistant ability to capture data, I think, will be really key, as well as the ability of saying, okay, well, how can we engage communities further and gamify the involvement by cleaning up the environment, showing up for a beach cleanup, showing up to plant corals, showing up to plant mangroves, showing up and saying, hey, Miami Biscayne Bay, for example, is dying. How do we save it? Well, you need seagrass. So we've done a couple of things to be able to take advantage of the different trends that are conspiring between artists and scientists and government and grassroots communities to be able to raise funding for things like corals, coral planting, mangrove planting, and seagrass planting. And on Twitter, you can find those. And these are, under coral drop or seagrass drop or mangrove drop. These are all series of NFTs, respectively, that would all form together and use to plant natural capital assets. In this case, just like you have NF trees, you buy an NFT, you plant the tree, you offset each carbon, the carbon emissions of each NFT. I know there's going to be a lot of concern around that. So, of course, the engineering of the NFTs needs to be done carbon neutrally or carbon negatively, which is what we're proposing. And so each one of these assets goes just like the Tom's 1-for-1 model. We're planting these things, and in between, creating a foundation for a permanent capital that allows, and a permanent balance sheet that allows us to invest in research and development, in venture capital, for matching funds, for a green bond or a blue bond, as the case might be, to finance these initiatives and scale these natural capital initiatives. Mangroves, for example, capture 7 times as much carbon than trees do. And they provide a number of benefits to ecology and biodiversity credits. Not just carbon credits, but we're hearing a lot of conversations of biodiversity credits as well. So that's one thing, right? And you can start now mixing these things and saying, hey, everybody that participated in this NFT collection, you guys can now go and maybe go plant the corals with us, right? And join us. And it becomes a bit of a social element just for showing up and cleaning up the beach. Here you go. We launched something called Oceans Tokens. And now you clean up, you show up, here's an Oceans token, you clean up another pound of trash, here's one. With that trash, you can create an art piece and then sell that art piece on an auction, which creates royalties for people that were involved in creating that and picking up the trash. So we create this virtuous flywheel of asset creation, of marketing, of gamification, and ultimately a permanent balance sheet for the greater good. So those are a couple of things that sort of all would fall into this rise of blockchain and Web3 and crypto and tokens and social tokens and NFTs and digital bonds and financial instruments, all sort of working together in a way that you don't have to understand, but will work, right? Just show up, claim your token, all of a sudden you're playing the game. And, right before this call, had a call with some of our other colleagues, Island 17, we're setting up a game of games for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals called Island 17. And each one of the Sustainable Development Goals has its own island. So as we build more NFTs and do more impact projects and actually create digital twins, for example, each one of the coral NFTs and Coral Drop, we have partners now in the Great Barrier Reef that are going to be made these like special robotic AI material this glider that can actually scan the entire reef. And so we plan to create the first digital twin of a coral reef in the world and use that just like we're using in Sustainable Cities to create digital twin of our city, of our country, being able to use the volumetric data and infographics in a way that makes it very easy to digest all these data points and what it means. Okay, KPI this, API that, what blah, 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 blah. It's a lot of noise, right? And actually, most people don't care, frankly. Most people just want to know that it works. Most people want to be able to get involved in a way that's fun, and they want to be able to see it in a way that's visually appealing, right? So right now for Bitcoin Week, we'll be doing our pilot for the beach cleanup, for the NFT drops. During Art Basel, we launched our first SDG Impact NFT, which was the Coral Drop, the Coral NFT, and so that is the Trisha. This is Silvia. I see them. I'm looking at the comments rolling in. So a lot of these ideas of the impact NFTs and the SDG goals can be done. So now we're taking that a step further. Okay, we did during Art Basel, we did our first thing. By the way, if you look at Bloomberg News, we did that with the Open Earth Foundation. Amazing group of people with partnership between MIT, Open Media Lab, and Yale University. I'll show you guys something actually to that effect. And in any case, one of the things that I think would be really interesting is that last week, then we also launched the SDG Impact DAO, right? So we're, we were last year promoting not just our foundation, building these consortiums for net zero, whether it's a green economy or blue economy for the oceans, which is very difficult. And lastly is looking at how to best portray more of the work to be done when it comes to proper investment and investment management and collective investment community and investment club, like in the form of DAOs. So DAOs have been on the rise. Last year, a lot of NFTs were talked about, and it seems like I'm having an issue with the mic. Am I coming in okay, Diana?
There is a little bit of an echo, but we can understand, we can follow, we can hear.
All right. And so as last year was the year of the NFTs, now this year we're seeing more of, okay, we did the NFTs and we're working on these digital impact bonds. This year is more the year of decentralized autonomous organizations. How can people collectively self-organize as a society for different causes that they care about? You have groups like Refi DAO, which is our partner for the Coral Reef Project, for example, that's working on this mapping project of the coral reefs. And then we have the SDG Impact DAO, which would be a DAO where LPs are GPs are LPs, everyone's making decisions collectively to understand what are the Web3 investments that we would like to consider making, whether they're security tokens or NFTs that will have some value. So we've created now this DAO. So these are, I think, all the main topics, Diana. Just to recap with you, we talked about putting carbon credits on chain, right, meaning on the blockchain, so that we can prove the authenticity and the source of those carbon credits, and how those can then be immediately retired. We're seeing DAOs that have been set up just for that effect, and a premium that's being driven because now you know that you don't have like double or triple accounting or you're selling of the carbon credits. So you need to be able to put the carbon credit on chain, verify where it comes from, and retire it immediately, which I think is a huge advance in terms of the general conversation that's been happening today. Then we have things like NFTs that I've been mentioning could be used to generate natural capital assets that ultimately regenerate the planet. Carbon offsets is nice, but if Planet Gaia had a voice, she'd be like, hey, guys, thank you so much for carbon credits, but 98% of my seagrass in the UK is dead. So what are we doing, right? Like if you're not going to the root of it, and that planet is natural capital assets, then offset does not really going to move the needle or save anyone. But natural capital assets have a lot of value, right? Intrinsic value and financial value and insurance value and regenerative value and resilience value that we are quantifying and looking at. And then we're looking at more, not just the decentralized finance future, specifically the regenerative finance future, what people are calling refi. And I think that this would be really the exciting topic for a lot of people that are participating in today's call, is regenerative finance and refi as a subsect of decentralized finance, DeFi. And the SDG Impact DAO sort of exemplifies a lot of that together with the other things that we have coming down the pipeline. So again, Web3 has made this idea of triple bottom line accounting, which was our original thesis starting out 10 years ago, had made it a reality that can prove that what we're saying and what we've been clamoring and talking about for a long time is inevitably true and arguably verifiable. And I think that that's really one of the great benefits of that Web3 is to bring to a lot of the sustainability efforts, or going beyond sustainability towards our generative efforts. And very happy to collaborate with anybody that's working on different projects that can fit into either the green economy, blue economy, social economy, or smart cities that can sort of move us in that net zero future. I'll take a pause there in case there's any questions. I think I've covered most of the points that I think are really critical for folks to understand, or at least to have a basic lexicon of the new emerging tools that are out there and different examples of how they can be used.
Right. No, you're doing a fantastic job in all these initiatives, Silvio. And unless we have any further questions from the audience, I'll take it back to you. Oh, we do. Do you work with Radd Plus in the context of mangrove restoration and preservation?
I have heard of them, but I'm not working with them just yet. Right. So this would be a perfect example. Martin, thank you so much for the question. This would be a perfect example of what we can use our mangrove NFTs for, right? Existing partners and groups that are working on regeneration, restoration, and preservation, we would look to partner with them so that we have a special collection for maybe a particular area that they want to preserve or restore. We would issue this special NFT series and collection, map out mangrove restoration and recollection through let's say something like LiDAR scans with drones. This would create a digital twin. We would use that to continue reporting. And mangroves, all the different natural capital assets, are actually well poised to have their own bonds, right? Mangrove bonds. And a lot of municipalities should be potentially looking into this. We have a lot of research on that. But we do need more bankable projects that are ready to go and that need some more of this either financial and technological support. So we'd certainly be interested in any other way to get involved with Radd Plus.
So how can we really verify and certify these actions? Do the tokens go to organizations? Maybe here we can talk a little bit about token structuring so that people understand that better. Silvio, you're muted.
All right. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, we only have a few more minutes, so.
Okay. So here's an example of how this would work. Inventories, monitoring, reporting would be in the center level. Here are the Earth systems and the IPCC reports and everything else that we understand are global inventories. The Paris Climate Agreement that, COP21 that we've all agreed to meet. This is how non-state, subnational, nation, all this information, this nested information gets put into others that feeds back into climate action. Ideally, for monitoring and reporting, that would be done through Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, real-world data. So Sustain Cities would be rolling out, let's say, a mesh network. That mesh network would have the data. That data through the sensors would report through an AI oracle, and that would be cross-referenced with, call it satellite data, on-the-ground data, maybe third-party or other contractors, and that issues the certificate for the asset in a way that's immutable. That climate asset then gets put into their emissions records for whatever is needed, and then the different players interact and are able to buy these certificates off the market. Things like Logos Capital and our green bonds, blue bonds, NFTs, etc. can all work there in finance. So that's one way to get that going. Did I share my screen? Were you able to see that?
I think, yeah, someone was sharing. It might have been you.
All right.
It's okay. So let's do one more question, which would be the UN SDGs need to be taught in all K through 12 with industry partnerships in schools to develop career education with job shadows and internships as students grow so that they become exposed to innovation with entrepreneurship skills that build their towns and cities. What are the links between investors and education?
I'm glad that question's asked. So there's actually not a lot of links, unfortunately. But what we've done is to create a understanding that this is a need. Right? We've restructured our business to think about three central business pillars. The broker-dealer and the asset management piece to get them together in an impact marketplace where consumers can buy goods that regenerate the planet or are good for the planet, can be verified as such, and invest into things that are also good and regenerate the planet across every asset class according to the themes that they care about with the SDGs. Now, how we tell that story, make it fun and engaging, includes this Impact Media Consortium, which is the game of games, like I mentioned, the NFT Impact, the art collections, the podcast, the storytelling. It's how we can bring these things onto like a Netflix or a YouTube series, to docu-series that tells the impact in an emerging way. And then using that media strategy to pull people into the third pillar, which is this Impact Academy. And through the Impact Academy, we're teaching people right now about, we're working with the local universities to give them blockchain education, the government's blockchain education. The second thing is impact investing education and the SDGs. And then we plan to combine these things so you have blockchain for impact and how they can be maximized value. I agree. These things like the SDGs should be taught in high schools, in grade school, and then maybe people can bring them home. It's surprising to me how such few people still know about the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm wearing my pin here today, representing that effort. But yes, absolutely agree that should be the case. And we're interested in bringing this education in the community.
Excellent. Well, we are out of time. Thank you to all our speakers.